Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here. Welcome to my Power Rangers Team Up Rewind review for Reinforcements from the Future. The Power Rangers Time Force and Wild Force Team Up. Real quick before we get started, I just want to say sorry these videos have been a little bit delayed lately. I was doing about once a week, but now it's about every 2 weeks, just because there's been so much other stuff to cover in terms of new merchandise and news, in addition to my weeklies. So I've been having to push them an extra week just so I have time to work on them, so sorry about that. But let's get started and actually talk about the team up you're here to hear about. And this is considered to be one of the best and most beloved team ups, at least from what I've known, and deservingly so. I think so. It is one of my personal favorites. Spoiler alert for my thoughts. I think it's one of the most well done in lots of aspects for a lot of different reasons. So with it, we start off with the Rangers meeting when Taylor gets a new car and she's speeding. Oh my god, a Ranger can actually have a flaw? And she gets pulled over by Eric because apparently the Silver Guardians handle traffic incidents now. And now Wes has an unnecessary hat as well. I really like this because it just reminds me of like, hey, remember when Rangers used to actually feel like human flawed beings and not Barney caricatures? So that's kind of the intro to that we're doing a Time Force team up. We know Wes and Eric are in the present. They intersect with one of the Wild Force members to set up for later, which I thought was kind of nice. And then you have all of a sudden the Mutorgs arriving from the future, and they speak in this weird backwards language thing. It's kind of like the Red Room, but before they re-reverse it, and they're kind of weird. And then they show up and they attack, and the Silver Guardians are there to fight them, and Wes and Eric are there to fight them. And something weird about this fight scene, I've always found weird ever since I first saw it when it aired, is that during this fight scene, there's like no music. It's really weird. I don't know, I mean, it was obviously purposeful on some level, but I don't know why they did it, or maybe they just couldn't put music there or something. Maybe somebody knows or has thoughts on it, but I just always felt it was weird, like I'm watching the unfinished dailies or something. And it's also weird because when they morph, there's like a split second of their music, and then there's no music in the fight. And there's also can be some complaining here about like, well, why are the Time Force Rangers here? Why didn't they appear during other Wild Force incidents? But whatever, that's not a big deal. But I thought that it was kind of weird that there was no music. The Wild Force Rangers show up and they all become aware of each other, and Taylor demorphs and she's like, hey, you're the one that gave me a ticket. And apparently no one cares about identities. But then they're like, okay, so why are you fighting these orgs? And like, no, why are you fighting these mutants? And this was always kind of weird to me because it felt like it was a competition about like, oh, well, we fight the real enemy, orcs, and we fight it was like this weird purism of enemies. And it also felt weird that like Time Force thought that the only enemies ever could be mutants. I mean, I guess that's all Wes and Eric ever encountered, but I just kind of imagined that through them being these Silver Guardian Rangers for like a year now after Time Force, and having known the Time Force Rangers and the history of the world, they knew that there was other enemies besides mutants. And so, I don't know, that just always, it's a nitpick, but I always thought it was a little bit weird. But I just did find kind of the competition over their unique enemies to be kind of funny. But the conversation sort of inspires Wes to call up the future on their little tiny sticks. That's how it, you know, future tech. And he calls up the year 3001 and finds out that Jen was investigating these mysterious Mutorgs. And so then they hook up with the Wild Force Rangers. I mean, Eric wants to, but you know what I mean. Like, they're talking to him and they sort of compare notes of everything going on, and they contact the future again. And I actually can't remember if it was when this scene or the last talk when they find out Jen was on a secret mission, but they basically talk to the future twice after they get a hold of the Wild Force Rangers again and start to link up with them. And then it leads to our first fight against the Mutorgs, and they have like the big classic, or one of the big classic quarry fights. I guess the last fight isn't in the quarry, but it seems like you always have to have a quarry fight. And they get saved by Jen, who's been in the past undercover, and I guess they didn't know that she was undercover in the past. They knew she was undercover investigating this, but didn't necessarily know she was there until she arrived. And when you go undercover, you gotta make sure that you're like super stealth. So she's dressed like she's from one of the Blade movies and carrying around an unnecessarily large sniper gun. But still, it's pretty badass. She saves them, and then eventually the other Wild Force Rangers, or the other Wild Force Rangers, the other Time Force Rangers, there's too many forces in this one, but the Time Force Rangers show up, and they all regroup, and Jen's upset to find out that Rancic was brought in because the Time Force Rangers thought that he could help and might know something about it, so they brought him there. And then there's a really nice scene, one of my favorites in the whole team up, when they're all at the Animarium, both casts, and Rancic is telling the story of back when he was an outcast in the future. He came across an ancient org temple, and he revived 3 powerful orgs, and basically they combined what was left of them with his mutant DNA to create the Mutorgs, and in exchange he got that power that allowed him to pull swords from from his body that we saw in the original series, or in the original Time Force series, which I thought that was really cool. Like, I've talked about in all these team-up reviews how it's always cool to see the two villains teaming up together as well, and getting a bit of cross-play stuff there. That sounded weird, but you know what I mean. And so this was really cool because they actually melded the two mythologies together, and it didn't feel forced. It felt like it was right. It felt right in line kind of back to when everything was a little more connected in the Zordon era. It added to Ransik's backstory and reinforced it, and it was like, it's something you would think of for a team-up, like, as just a cool, like, dumb team-up idea of, oh, we'll combine the enemies into Mutorgs. But it honestly worked, even if they were kind of, like, weird Frankenstein recycled monsters. But I love this scene because that's one of the best things about this team-up, in my opinion, is the quiet moments. Like, in addition to the cool moments of a crossover of the two teams meeting and fighting together, this one is, like, one of the few, actually, that has a lot of more quiet moments between the casts, both of, like, their own casts and the crossover casts. Like, at the base, like, Ransik explaining to all of them was a really nice quiet moment. And then not long after that, you have a nice scene with Wes and Jen. Earlier in the episode, there was a nice moment with Eric and Taylor. There's a couple nice moments with them, and I like that this team-up amongst the two parts allows for nice character interactions. It is not just, oh my god, they stood next to each other and there was an explosion! And so I really liked seeing that, so that was really nice. And they basically come up with a plan. We go to the final battle, and then at the final battle, Ransik, like, sacrifices himself when the Rangers do, or the Rangers shoot him out of nowhere, like, you know what, you're still evil, Ransik, pew pew pew! No, but the monsters go to shoot at Nudira, and he gets in the way, and somehow he's destroyed their mutant halves when he did the sacrifice thing, and they kind of leave him there. You do your classic team-up fight. Merrick shows up. I forgot he existed. That could be kind of one of the nitpicks I have, is I kind of wish Merrick was there, mainly because, having rewatched this a couple times now later, I was thinking there could have been some interesting interactions with him and Eric about how, you know, Eric was not really a part of the Time Force team till the end, and then Lunar Wolf was a little different, because it's not like he was against the Rangers, he just felt guilty about Zenaku, so he didn't want to be with them. And I think there could have been some room for an interesting interaction between them about, like, hey, you know, give your friends a chance, you know, they'll accept you, we should work with them. Especially since there was a scene earlier in the team-up when Eric was talking about how his friends used to drive him crazy until he came around to him, more or less, when him and Taylor were watching Max and Danny be Max and Danny. So I think that was kind of a missed opportunity that I thought of all at once when Merrick entered like this, and I kind of laughed because it was pretty, like, he was trying too hard to be cool. So team-up morph, team-up fight, and the fight scenes in this were pretty good. Like, right from this one to the Gen fight, to even the first fight with Quantum and Time Force Red, there's lots of wire fu. I'm gonna be honest, I'm a fan of the wire fu fights that more become prevalent in the Disney era. I think that the bigger fights like that make them feel like they're actually powerful, instead of just doing martial arts and getting knocked into a bunch of empty boxes that are all around the industrial district. Also some cool moments within the final battle when they were doing, like, civilian fights and stuff, and they had some cool, like, interesting interactions. Like, Jen gave Alyssa a Chrono Blaster and she was dual wielding them, so there were some cool moments in that, and a bunch of little kind of cool civilian fight moments and them working together. And there was this funny and cool moment, it was like a fool moment, where Taylor got the Quantum Blaster from Eric, because it was kind of a callback to earlier when he was cleaning it. Like, that's not a euphemism, that's literally what was happening. It was kind of a callback to that, so he tosses it to her to, like, blow up this power box or whatever, and she does this unnecessary spin to the ground to fire something that was, like, right behind her. Like, it's like where the screen is, and he could have caught it, or she could have caught it and been like, pew, but instead she was like, and then she does it. Like, that was unnecessary. Like, imagine if I'd be like, hey man, can you toss me my keys? And then someone tosses me the keys and I catch them, but, like, as I'm catching them, I'm doing, like, a spin move and start breakdancing. It's like, that was, like, needless. Like, I don't know why you did that. Like, it looks cool, but at the same time, it's like, was it worth it? You know, the battle eyes are up, you destroy the enemy, and then we get a nice little ending picnic scene with both casts, including Ransik, who is now healed. I'm a little mixed on this. I think it was nice that Ratsik, that's his brother. Ransik, remember Famous Jet Jackson? I think it's nice that Ransik got kind of an epilogue happy ending. But I'm mixed on him being, like, purified, because I felt like the whole thing was, he wasn't accepted because of how he looked, and then that helped turn him evil, and I think it would have been almost nicer if he was accepted for how he looked. So, I don't know, it's just a little bit, it's kind of nice, but I also think they could have done the same thing without necessarily fixing him. You know what I mean? If that makes any sense. But it was a really nice scene, and they play like a Princess Shayla theme song, and it was really funny earlier when the Time Force Rangers arrive at the base and she pops out of the fountain. I'm like, hold on to your jackets, Princess Shayla's in the room. Kind of a little bit of a cheesy scene with the song, but I really like it because you get a bunch of different little mini scenes in it that show off the characters' personalities and them interacting, and like Max hitting on Nadira, and then Lucas going away with her, and Rancic being an overprotective dad, and there's just all kinds of nice little moments, and it's cool to see the cast interact, because honestly, as the more I've gotten older, this is something I've always appreciated about the team-ups, more so than anything, but even more that I've gotten older, I like the interactions more, and it was just such a nice way to have them interact. And so this is overall like one of the best team-ups for a reason, in my opinion. I think it did there's very few real complaints I have about it. It kind of hit all the right notes. They kind of merged the two series of stories together in a way that didn't feel forced. They had lots of good cast interaction, lots of good actual action. It also kind of acted as an epilogue for Time Force. Like, you could almost have just made an hour-long Time Force Returns movie out of this if you took out some of the Wild Force stuff. And I think it definitely leaned a little heavier on the Time Force stuff, but they still integrated Wild Force really well, like with the Mutorg stuff, the little relationship with Taylor and Eric and things like that. So it wasn't perfect, but I thought it was pretty well balanced in terms of doing a team up but also acting as an epilogue, because that's something else I've mentioned, is that sometimes these team ups act as a bit of an epilogue where they are now of the previous season, and I think this was one of the best at it. It also did a good job of teeing up Forever Red a little bit when Wes is talking about there being other Rangers out there, and just in general I always liked that Wes and Cole met before this, and Eric, just because, like, I like that we got both team-ups. It was kind of cool. Instead of just being, they could have very easily been like, okay, well, we'll just do Forever Red, but I like that we decided to do our annual team-up as well. Because, you know, as much as I love Once a Ranger, that's kind of what they did there, where they're like, okay, well, we're doing Once a Ranger, we don't need to do a Mystic Force team-up. So I like that we got both, and it kind of led into it a little bit. And there was just lots of really good moments in there, and it's just really enjoyable, and it's always been enjoyable, but I feel like it's extra enjoyable now that we're in this modern era where, especially the most recent, like, kind of Dino team-up stuff has just always been kind of like the most shallow aspects. Like, oh, the suits are here, oh, they don't even really interact. Like, so I like seeing the interactions, kind of the more quiet moments, and I appreciate this team-up even more now. Definitely one of the best. I would give it a 9. But what do you guys think? Do you like reinforcements from the future? Is it one of your favorites like most people? Let me know in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get the notifications from my videos. Dawson Ryder, signing out. There was also some cool moments within the final battle when they were doing like civilian fights and stuff, and they had some cool, like, interesting interactions. Like, Jen gave Alyssa a Chrono Blaster and she was dual wielding them, so there were some cool moments in that, and a bunch of little kind of cool civilian fight moments and them working together. And there was this funny and cool moment, it was like a fool moment, where Taylor got the Quantum Blaster from Eric, because it was kind of a callback to earlier when he was cleaning it. Like, that's not a euphemism, that's literally what was happening. It was kind of a callback to that, so he tosses it to her to, like, blow up this power box or whatever, and she does this unnecessary spin to the ground to fire something that was, like, right behind her. Like, it's like where the screen is, and he could have caught it, or she could have caught it and been like, pew, but instead she was like, and then she does it. Like, that was unnecessary. Like, imagine if I'd be like, hey man, can you toss me my keys? And then someone tosses me the keys and I catch them, but, like, as I'm catching them, I'm doing, like, a spin move and start breakdancing. It's like, that was, like, needless. Like, I don't know why you did that. Like, it looks cool, but at the same time, it's like, was it worth it?